Welcome back to Midweek Politics. I'm David Pakman. If you are on Facebook, check out our Facebook group. Just search for Midweek Politics. Of course, on YouTube as well, youtube.com/Midweek Politics. Well, over the weekend, I had a chance to sit down with Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, part of our 2010 campaign kickoff, I guess we could say. It was also his campaign kickoff. I think he has a tough re-election campaign ahead. We saw how Scott Brown's campaign went. I think there could be trouble for Democrats all around the country, senators, congressmen, governors. And it was great to speak with Governor Deval Patrick about where he sees that going. If you go on to midweekpolitics.com, we also have behind-the-scenes pictures from the interview. You can see Lewis having his sandwich and not at all interested in doing some filming and plenty more. We're going to get to part one of my interview with the governor now. Part two will be coming up next week. And of course, email us, radio@midweekpolitics.com. Here is part one of my interview with Governor Deval Patrick. Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, officially running for re-election in 2010. We're here at Smith College. I don't want to start off on a downer, but I have a compliment and then a confession.
Okay.
And then a criticism. The compliment is 4 years ago when you were running,
yes,
you did our show. I called, I pretended to be my producer because I didn't even have a producer, and I already said we had your opponents booked, and your staff was nice enough to have you call into our show. Mm-hmm. Compliment, thank you. The criticism is, you said you would come back once you were reelected.
I'm back.
We didn't hear from you until the day after the next campaign, and our audience told me he's not coming back until he's running again for something, and I told him you're wrong. He's going to be back soon. I don't know what happened, but
I fired that person.
Okay.
Okay,
good.
so I'm back.
I'm glad you're back.
I am too.
And I would like to, number one, ask you what's going to be different this time than the last 4 years. But before we get to your election, Martha Coakley and Scott Brown.
Yeah.
A lot has been said about whether that election was a referendum on health care, whether there was something about giving Massachusetts voters the first shot at something which we're not used to having in the primary. How much of a factor was health care and what happened there?
God only knows. You know, don't ask me pundit questions because I'm not a pundit.
What's
I'll tell
your
you
inkling?
let me tell you what my take on that election was. You know, I was with Martha. I think she's a fabulous person. She's been a great AG, and I think she would have been a great United States Senator. But I respect what Scott did, you know, because he did the work. He was out there. He talked to people. He engaged with people. And even if you don't, you know, philosophically believe in grassroots campaigning as I do, I think it's a time when people are so uneasy because of the economy. They've had their lives and their plans turned upside down. They've had their salaries and their home values and their savings hammered by this economy. And they need to feel that their candidates and their elected officials see them and hear them and understand them, and most importantly are working for them. And I think that's what Scott Brown conveyed. So for me, because again, I philosophically believe in grassroots campaigning. I believe in being out there, and I'm ashamed that I haven't been on your show since we started out on that chastisement, and duly noted. But for someone who really believes in the importance of being out there, and not just talking but listening, I think in some respects, it's news I can absorb and deal with. So, and I've also had that conversation with Scott from the night of the election and a couple times since, and then down in his office when I had a chance to visit with him in Washington. You know, we run hard as a Democrat or Republican, but we serve everybody, including the people who didn't vote for us. And as long as he is mindful, not just of his partisan expectations, but the needs of all of the Commonwealth, and he keeps the needs of all of the Commonwealth foremost in mind, then we can have a working relationship, and I'll look forward to it.
Not to turn this into Monday morning quarterbacking another election. You have enough to worry about with your own.
Right.
A few years ago, when you were 32 or 33 points up on your Republican challenger in 06, I asked you if you were comfortable with that, and you actually said no. Yeah. And I thought you were crazy. But Martha Coakley was up 30 points. Yeah. And then whether it's because she thought Curt Schilling was a Yankee or because she took 3 weeks off, she lost with that lead. Yeah. Will that make you more careful, even more careful this election?
Well, it's hard for me to be more careful than I am already because I take nothing for granted. And that's not just a political approach, that's in life. You know, I think that comes from, you know, growing up on welfare. You just don't take things for granted. I count my blessings every day. We are planning every day. We're building every day. I will say this, I think I am, I'm so accustomed to being an underdog that if anything, it energizes me. And I urge folks who are supporting this campaign, who want to get involved in this campaign or who have already, not to take anything for granted. All the polls show us winning, and they have all along, even when everybody was writing my political obituary. But I think it is enormously important for us to go and show the respect to people of asking for their support, of listening to their needs and incorporating that into, as much as we can, into what it is we're trying to do as an agenda going forward.
I think any candidate who hopes to win nationally for the Democrats needs to do all of those things. Mm-hmm. In looking at the results from '06 and the results from this special election, mm-hmm. there is a segment of the electorate that voted for you in 2006 and then voted for Scott Brown in 2010, yes. just a few months ago. Right. Does it feel unlikely that somebody who swings from Deval Patrick in '06 to Scott Brown in 2010 is going to go back to you just a few months later? And that, to me, I think it's a big enough portion of the electorate that they could decide the election.
Well, look, first of all, there's a myth about Massachusetts being this overwhelmingly blue state.
Right.
There are more unenrolled independents in Massachusetts than there are registered Republicans and registered Democrats combined. And I think that says, you know, what I have felt for a long time is that people aren't buying 100% of what either party is selling. We are very discerning here. We have chosen Democrat and Republican governors. We have chosen now a Republican senator, and I think that people are going to make their judgment on the candidate, on the vision, on the agenda, and on a relationship that they build, that we build. With the voters, and as I say, at least in our case, the respect we're going to show voters by showing up and asking them to support not just me, but a vision for a better and stronger Commonwealth.
So I'm hearing, if I paraphrase, and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't seem like a long shot to you that somebody might vote for Scott Brown in January and Deval Patrick in November.
Well, what you're hearing from me is that I think the forecasting and the effort by pundits and pollsters to say what's going to happen before people say what's going to happen by exercising their vote is a mistake. And if we had paid attention to that forecasting, you know, 4 years ago, I wouldn't have the job today.
Well, you were way up in the polls most of the time in 2006.
No, I wasn't.
Every time we talked to you, you were way up.
We must have talked to each other at the end.
It looked really rosy, I'll tell you.
We must have talked to each other at the end, because there's so much about this go-round that feels familiar. You know, we were, John Walsh, who managed the campaign the last time and is now the chair of the State Democratic Party, has this great description of the aftermath, the sort of the post-mortem commentary on that campaign. And he says that people say that we had a brilliant strategy. It was executed flawlessly from the start, and I won unanimously. In fact, like most campaigns, it built, and we zigged and zagged, and we tried different things, and all the time, I'm proud to say, true to our values. I never turned into somebody else in order to win, and I won't do that. And you know, we had all the same stuff. We had low poll numbers. We had not enough money, and people saying we couldn't raise it. We had people saying, you know, this is somebody who doesn't know all the powerful people who bless Democratic candidacies and without whom it can't happen. And we built at the grassroots, again, to the point about my faith in the grassroots. And I think, by the way, that's the way democracy ought to be.
Thanks to Deval Patrick for sitting down with me over the weekend. We'll have part 2 of the interview with the Massachusetts governor next week, including the controversial topic of gay marriage. You won't want to miss that. Midweek Politics is brought to you in part by Jackson & Connor, classically modern men's apparel in Northampton, Massachusetts on the second floor of Thorne's Marketplace, and by DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at difdesign.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit midweekpolitics.com.